This video is sponsored by Aura. Stranger Things is very strange to me. Every 3 years in the 2-week window where the show is at its most popular, the show is everything to me and thousands of stan accounts on Twitter. But when that 2-week window disappears, it's like the show never existed in the first place. This season, I don't know if that's going to be the case. Stranger Things 4 is one of the best seasons the show has had in a while. It honestly might be my favorite, which is saying a lot because I speak for a lot of fans when I say I had never felt more distanced from the show going into it than I did this time around. Hopper's in Russia, some of the kids are in California, some of the kids are still in Hawkins, half the kids don't matter anymore. I mean, why is the show even still around? And I'm happy to say that season 4 not only delivered in being really entertaining TV, but more importantly, it proved that the show still has a lot of questions that demand answers. The show is honestly beginning to lose its original charm, in my opinion, and began straying further and further away from the strange underbelly of horrors happening in Hawkins. And with a ton of charm, effective horror, and addictive storytelling, this season ended up being one of my favorites. Let's talk about it in a few categories. I'll also acknowledge that this is a video reviewing the Volume 1 part. I think I might do an update when Volume 2 comes out, who knows. You don't realize how much the style of the show has evolved until you look back at season 1. With each episode of this season costing like $30 million, you bet your ass it's gonna look good. And it does. Stranger Things takes a while to get released and the wait almost killed the show's momentum, but my god is it worth it. The cinematography this season was gorgeous. That whole roller skating scene looked unbelievable. The production design was turned up to the max. I mean, every location felt so lived in and full. I just can't imagine the amount of work that went into every little detail. My one complaint about the technical side of the show would be the CGI. I know it would have costed them even more money to do some of these effects practically. I'm at the very least glad Vecna was real makeup. That is unbelievable. But most of the upside down stuff in the back half of the season is giving me Spy Kids 3D. The bats in that one scene, come on. But all that aside, the show looked amazing this season. I take this very thoughtful and polished attention to the filmmaking any day over Euphoria's Tumblr blog approach. Let's talk about some of these characters because I have some thoughts. I know this might get me in some hot water, but I thoroughly enjoyed the character that is Eddie. He has great hair, his over-the-top delivery is much needed in a show full of dudes who haven't laughed in 3 years, and I will just be honest, I think he's very attractive in a way that is kind of what you want in a TV star. I enjoy looking at him, and that's enough for me. I will say I think they should do more with him in the future. A chaotic Steve is simply not enough for me, but I'm honestly just glad he's here. I thought Sadie Sink's performance as Max was undoubtedly the standout of the season. I 100% agree with all the people saying she's going places. She clearly has the talent. I also really like Caleb McLaughlin as Lucas. He seemed to really understand the tone of the show more than any of the other kids this season, and Lucas was honestly one of the more interesting characters to watch. I know it seems like I'm getting happy over the bare minimum, but it just feels nice to have a character that feels like he needs to be in the show still. And like with every season, David Harbour feels like a college athlete on a high school JV team. He's way too good of an actor for this show. I genuinely think he should be in the running for an Emmy for this season because my god was he good. And I'm glad Natalia Dyer as Nancy got a lot more to work with this season than she has in the past. I'm glad of all the characters that have started to feel useless, the writers knew that she was interesting enough to kind of do more with. Millie Bobby Brown is Millie Bobby Brown. She's great and doesn't really do anything mind-blowing this season with the character, but definitely carried what she needed to. And one last hot take is that I like Argyle. I think we should keep him around. He's good. Now, as for the bad, I think Robin and Dustin are both kind of really annoying at this point. I get that they're supposed to be the comic relief, but it's the kind of comic relief that isn't so much a relief as it is interrupting something to make a joke. Steve pulls it off every time. These two, I don't know, Finn Wolfhard, Charlie Heaton, and Noah Schnapp. Fellas, these boys do not need to be in the show anymore. Finn Wolfhard I do like a lot. He's an interesting actor, but I think he has fully outgrown this show. Charlie Heaton's character is completely pointless at this point. He could die and I would not feel a thing. The Nancy stuff is so uninteresting to me. Like, who cares at all at this point? And Noah Schnapp, buddy, I don't know if acting is your thing. He was bad this season. I really didn't like him this season. Nothing against Schnapp personally, I just don't buy him as Will for a second. And everyone else I'm pretty indifferent towards. Aside from those three, I think the show is really well acted, and this season is proof of that. I mean, do you know what the fastest growing crime in America is? For years, this crime has been surging and affecting millions of Americans. No, it isn't whatever the heck is happening in this show. I'm talking about identity theft, and there's a new victim every 14 seconds. Imagine trying to log into your email one day only to see that your password was changed hours ago. Then you start getting notifications of activity from your bank, your credit card, and that's when those feelings of anxiety, panic, fear, shock, anger start to set in. And that's why I'm excited to partner with Aura, who is sponsoring this video. Aura is identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, password management, and antivirus software all combined into one easy-to-use app. Aura monitors the dark web for your emails, passwords, and social security numbers and sends alerts fast, right to your phone and email. Because when it comes to fraud, every second matters. You're able to connect your credit and bank accounts to get notified of any changes up to 4 times faster than Aura's competitors. Their VPN allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browser history and information safe and encrypted. And they have an antivirus software that will block malware and viruses before they hit your devices. Thanks to Aura, I now know that my information has been found on the dark web 4 separate times. If you get the free trial, let me know how many times your stuff has been found on the dark web. It's more common than you think. Try Aura free for 2 weeks and see if any of you or your family's information has been compromised. Start your free trial at aura.com/Karsten. Now let's get back into the video. Something people love to say about this show is how it peaked at season 1 and was clearly not even meant to go past that point. I was in agreement until this season. Without getting into spoilers, one of my favorite things about season 4 was just how much it explained. It really made it seem like the writers had this whole thing figured out from the start, which is always a cool feeling. None of the major plots this season felt forced or drawn out the way they did in 2 and 3. Everything was very logical. Like, yes, this should be happening to 11, and it's interesting. And yes, the town would react this way. That makes sense, which is why I'm kind of glad Mike and Will don't get that much screen time this season. The writers recognize that they are clearly not the priority here, and the show respects the audience's emotional engagement more than it does the stan culture that it could feed into, which is a funny sentence to say because Euphoria doesn't care about either of those things. But anyway, the ending, once again, not spoiling, was really great. It raised the stakes, opened up my curiosity about the show, added so many new layers, and just made me excited about it again. Because quite frankly, after a while, and I don't think I'm alone here, the kids trying to solve mysteries and battle monsters gets a little repetitive, and at this point we really needed something to explain the monsters a little bit more. Now, something pretty obvious about this season is that everyone is in their own little world. There's 4 stories going on: 11 stuff, the Hawkins stuff, the California stuff, and the Russia stuff. This kind of format immediately reminds me of Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. It's a massive story with so many different characters and plot lines to keep track of that the only logical way of telling this story is to make it 4 stories. And with Avengers, it worked in my opinion, and it also works here. It's a format that really works well for Stranger Things because you do get so many different tones that fit in this one universe. In California, you get this light-hearted comedy stuff. In Hawkins, you get a detective crime story. In Russia, you get a gritty prison story. And in 11's plot, you get this bleak sci-fi thing that feels pretty contemporary. The show proves it isn't just riding on 80s nostalgia, it's a kaleidoscope of different styles that miraculously kind of all work together. Now, like I said earlier, this video is only recapping Volume 1. I haven't seen how all of this will come together. For stuff like the California plot and the Hopper plot, I don't know how exactly they're going to tie that together. I imagine it will be pretty cool. But what's important is that I care, and I'm actually sort of invested in all of it. Even if Mike does not matter anymore, so much so that he wasn't even in the final episode of Volume 1. I still want to see what happens to him. Not to mention, they also managed to fix the whole real-world implications aspect of the show. Something kind of annoying about Season 3 is how they had to pretend like the whole town would believe it was a mall fire when obviously who the fuck would believe that? I love the route they took with the town turning to conspiracy and cults as the reason for the killings. It not only added a really fun conflict to the story, but it also was just plain believable for a small rural American town to go that route. Now, really quick, I want to do some quick predictions for Volume 2 because I think it would be fun to look back on. This is your spoiler warning. Skip to this part of the video if you don't want to see that. I think it's pretty obvious Steve is gonna die, and I'm not happy about it. Everything is pointing towards that, but I also think Max could die, and either of them dying would kind of kill a lot of my interest in the show, unfortunately. It would be bold, but it would be very depressing, which is a little frustrating because I feel like we could have gotten to know a little bit more about Steve. Even though he's had a bit of an arc, we don't really know him that well as a character, and killing him off would be very disappointing. But I am 99% sure this man is gone. He did not make it outside of the Upside Down the last time we saw him, so yeah. So yes, I really liked this season, which is just a nice thing to feel for a show that I feel weirdly critical about. And I think I'm critical because it's such a good story. It's a genuinely entertaining show with a whole lot of backstory, and to watch it unravel in real time, to have something this big to be invested in, is exciting. And I've seen it do too much good for me to want it to flop. And thankfully it seems to be moving in a good direction, and I seriously cannot wait for Volume 2 and Season 5. Maybe I'll do an update video Who knows. It also goes without saying that the Kate Bush scene was one of the best things the show has ever done. Don't know how I forgot to mention that. It's pretty amazing. So anyway, thanks for watching. Go watch Stranger Things 4 and form your own opinion, and I will see you all in the next one.